Good morning and welcome to Big Bets on Campus Live, presented by BetMGM. It's 9 a.m. Eastern, and this is the Championship Saturday college football betting preview. I'm your host, Stuckey, and joining me, as always, my Big Bets on Campus podcast co-host, Collin Wilson, and of course, our own college football insider, Mr. Brett McMurphy. I know we're coming to you a little bit early today, as I know people have Team USA on their mind. They're going to tune that in a couple hours before the real football begins. We have a loaded show. We're going to get to 4 marquee games. We'll share our best bets in just a moment. We'll actually close out with a extra best bets. We'll actually cover, in some form or fashion, every game on the board today. Before we do get started, I do want to remind everyone to make sure you download the award-winning Action Network app. You can find all of our picks on there, in addition to an abundance of actionable data and content for today's slate and beyond. And I do want to remind everyone of an offer from our sponsor, BetMGM. Use the bonus code ACTION when signing up and get a risk-free wager up to $1,000. Again, that's the bonus code ACTION. Terms and conditions do apply. I do also want to apologize in advance if I have to cough or lose my voice, still a little under the weather. Colin, are you excited for Team USA, or are you just using that as a little buffer to get to the college football?
Yeah, we'll call it the early day Bloody Mary portion before we get into the heavy conference championships. Already cashed in Utah 4-1. Excited for a couple more to hit today.
Yeah, it's a nice excuse, a friend in town to go to the bar a little bit early today. So, Brett, you're coming to us casual, Brett, for the conference championship Saturday.
I'm wearing all black. It's our final show of the regular season. A little sad here. Stuck. I figured you're a horse from screaming for the Utes last night, and finally the turnover regression finally hitting USC after 13 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, it hit on a 4th and 6, like 4th and 9 down, 16. They finally lost a fumble where it didn't matter. So yeah, well, much more about the college football playoff later. It is our last regular season as conference champions, but we will have bowl shows, more details to come there. All right, let's jump right into it with our best bets. Let's first check out the leaderboard. I'm still on top. Most importantly, our best bets across the board have hit 61% for the season. So hopefully we can close strong. I'll kick things off for today. I'm going to go with Coastal Carolina catching over a touchdown. I'm going to keep everything short and sweet today. I just assume Grayson McCall will play, 3-time Sun Belt Player of the Year, first player ever to do that. He's worth double-digit points to the spread. If he's not 100% healthy, maybe it's about a touchdown. But this Troy offense struggles to build margin. The Coastal defense is terrible, but they can get pressure on the quarterback, and that is an area that Troy struggles with on passing downs. So I think Coastal can keep this within a touchdown, assuming McCall plays. That is my assumption here. If he doesn't, good luck to all of us. But I'm going to go with a chance here, catching over a touchdown on a line that I think is inflated if McCall does indeed go. Colin, where are you going?
Yeah, I'm going to go to the ACC Championship, UCF Tulane over. These two teams just met up in week 11. It was just a scoring fest. There were 69 points total. And I think the question is were those all on explosive plays? Because explosive plays are unpredictable, usually not sustainable. But in this case, they had, between the two teams, Tulane and UCF, they had 12 drives get past the 40. That resulted in 62 points. These were long sustained drives, quality drives that ended up in points. I don't think that was a fluke. It's going to happen again. And Tulane just has no answers when it comes to opposing rush. So if John Reese Plumlee is just a little bit healthier, if he's on a snap count or whatever, he's going to be able to dice up the Tulane defense. And then the UCF defense had one of their worst days of the year going up against Michael Pratt and Tyjae Spears. So I just expect more of the same quality drives, points in the red zone. I'll take the over here.
Yeah, speaking of this game, get USC and that defense out of the college football playoff. Get Ohio State out. They're not playing this weekend. Get Alabama out. They're not playing this weekend. If Tulane wins and covers today, put Tulane in. If Kansas State wins. Tulane won at Kansas State. And most importantly, they'd be the best against the spread team in the country. Roll wave. Brett, where are you going?
I'm going with a little action. I'm going Toledo against Ohio. Toledo, I think about a 3-point favorite earlier in the week. It was down to 1. The news has got out that star quarterback DeJuan Finn is 100% and ready to go. I was told that early in the week. Last week, Toledo basically just went through the motions. They had this game locked up. They're coming off a loss. And also, look, I can read like everyone else. Ohio has covered 8 straight games at the end of the year. Toledo has failed to cover in 5 straight games. Well, guys, you know what? You've taught me throughout the year a number of things, but number one is regression. That's right. So this is not going to go forever. Because of last week's misleading results, I've got 100% quarterback in Finn against an Ohio team without Curtis Rourke. How's that song go? In the Rockets' red glare. I won't sing. It's too early. But on Team USA Day, let's go Toledo, go Rockets.
Well, I hope you're wrong because I have a Ohio future, and sadly, you're right. Curtis Rourke, who's the player of the year, offensive player of the year, one of the best quarterbacks in the country this year, will not play. Toledo does now have tape on the backup who had to win the game that clinched the division. They're running a lot more like, pure option stuff. So, there's no element of surprise here. We'll see. I know Finn is 100% to go to start. We'll see how mobile he is because that's huge. He's not your, standard generic pocket passer. So we'll see how much he can move, but you are probably getting Toledo at a discount here, but no team has been more disappointing as a favorite, but I wish you luck. Actually, I don't wish you luck because I have an Ohio future. Anyway, let's move on to our marquee games. We're going to cover all 4 Power 5 conference championships today. We'll kick things off at noon with the Big 12 championship in Arlington. We're talking Kansas State, TCU. TCU, 1.5-ish, 2-point favorite here. I think over-under is still sitting around 61.5. I'm going to pass here. I make this game a pick. I really wanted to get 3. Never came. Don't think it's going to come. Maybe I'll look live. I do have some Kansas State in a round robin, but I think I've also lost any credibility I have on TCU games. So, Collin, let me kick it to you. What do you got here?
Yeah, I've been tooting the horn of TCU for the better part of 7 months now. So today's a really big day, but I'm going to go from a single game perspective with these two. I'm going to go with the under. The Kansas State defense switched to a 3-3-5 coming into this season. They had a 4-man front for decades, finally switched to that, and that has eliminated explosive plays. Kansas State, long time, have been burned by big plays in the Big 12, and now they've finally got a defense that can put a stop in that, and that really is the TCU offense. They're heavy explosives on the ground, heavy explosives through the air, and the way to defend them and try to keep them off the board is to have that 3-3-5 defense. So conversely, the TCU defense has just been outstanding over the last half of the stretch of the college football season. The Horned Frogs have allowed just 6 touchdowns in their last 7 second half of their games that they've played. Joe Gillespie, the defensive coordinator this year, has come into the season and absolutely just shut down every offense he's faced after he makes his halftime adjustments. I expect a lot more of that today. And don't forget, these are 2 ground-based offenses. They limit explosive plays on defense, and they have paces that are longer than 28 seconds per play. So a number I make about 58. If you can find a 62 out there, that'd be better, but I'll go under 61.5.
TCU loses today. Are they still in?
I think they're still in. I mean, with 1 loss, who else are you going to put in?
Yeah, I mean, it would be Alabama, but I agree. I think that USC, in a weird way, I know Brett's going to say, the committee doesn't care about this, but I think in a weird way that USC losing, I think that Ohio State's going to get in. But I don't think that they're going to screw over 2 teams that played this weekend for 2 teams that didn't play on conference championship weekend, especially when the number of losses they have fewer losses than the team in Alabama that might replace them. Brett, before I get your thoughts on this game, do you agree TCU loses today? As long as it's not like 58-0, they're still in.
I just didn't know I do like this when I make my point. But yeah, yeah, I think Stuck. I think TCU's in. I would make an argument USC should be in, but they weren't competitive. They got worn down. Everyone's ready to put Ohio State in. I agree with you. TCU loses. I would even argue they should remain the 3 seed.
What do you got in this game?
Well, I don't know if you guys heard this interview I did, but way back in August, I was a guest on this little up and coming podcast. I think it was called Big Bets on Campus with Collin and Stuckey. And on this interview, I was asked point blank, who was my pick to win the Big 12? I'm an Oklahoma State guy, have some ties there. I said TCU and Sonny Dykes. And then I was able to go to media days with Collin Wilson. It was a thrill for me. And I learned so much about Sonny Dykes. and the Horned Frogs. I know what's happened this season. We've documented it. The close calls, they played multiple backup quarterbacks. Kansas State had a double-digit lead in the last meeting. And also TCU has heard all week, and they remember how they got screwed in 2014. While I think we're confident they get in with a loss, I think they will play their A game. Look, Chris Kleiman is a tough coach to go against in this type of situation, but give me the TCU Hypno Frogs to win the Big 12 and march on to the college football playoff.
Brett, what would happen if TCU just said, look, I'm not playing today. We're already in. I'm not risking anything like USC. We're not going to play.
The committee may hit them and say, okay, fine. If you're going to lay down, we'll put somebody in front of you. By the way, they've done that before when they won 55-3. So,
yeah, no, I think they're contractually obligated to play too. I just think that it speaks to the absurdity of what this weekend is with some teams playing and some teams not. All right, let's move on to the SEC Championship. These games at 4 Eastern at Mercedes-Benz. Talking Georgia, LSU. Georgia, 17.5-point favorite here. I think over-under is still sitting around 52. I'll kick things off here. I'm going to go with the dogs here. I think that they're motivated. That's kind of how you had to cap Georgia this year. Con, I know you and I have talked about that a lot this season. It's like there's a couple games that they look bored from the start. Missouri, Kentucky, Kent State. But this is kind of the missing piece for them. You look at their senior safety, Chris Smith, who's, this will be the 4th division title that he's won. He still hasn't won an SEC championship. I think they'll come in motivated. And I don't think Jaden Daniels will be 100%, which is just massive, just against this defense. And I think Georgia will be able to run it, throw to their tight ends. And I think they care. And if they do, I think they win this game by 3 touchdowns plus. Collin, what say you?
Yeah, I think that those points are going to come early rather than later. This team is heavily fired up to get an SEC championship. The group of players on this roster, that's what has eluded them this entire time. And so they're fired up here. But when you listen to Kirby Smart in his presser this week, they said, what are you going to do about linebacker Harold Perkins? He said mismatches. We have to throw mismatches on him the whole game. And what that's code for is Brock Bowers and Darnell Washington are going to run up the hash marks and put him in pass coverage, because Harold Perkins has been a great linebacker against the rush. His coverage grading has been pretty poor. So that's definitely the place to put him to get a mismatch. And as for LSU, if Jaden Daniels, he was in a walking boot earlier this week. If there's no zone read, if there's no rushing attack coming from him, then you can expect more passing plays. And more passing plays means quicker possessions. It means more possessions overall in the game. But, it's not a good space for LSU to be in, especially in the first half if they're already one-dimensional and limited. So I'm going to take Georgia in the first half. And avoid any backdoor, since Brian Kelly has proved against Kirby Smart at Notre Dame that he can keep it close. But I'm going to avoid that and just go first half.
Crazily enough, if Georgia wins this game, they'll presumably get the 1 seed, then they will play their 3rd neutral site game of the season in this stadium with a pretty big home field advantage. You'd have their opener against Oregon this week and then the semifinals. Brett, what do you see here?
Yeah, Stuck. They've started getting their mail there in Atlanta now. They just have everything forwarded there. I like over in this game, over 52. The SEC is generally regarded as the best defensive league in the country, at least talent-wise. But when you get the East and West Division champs inside Mercedes-Benz Stadium, or formerly the Georgia Dome, crazy things happen. It is unreal loud. It is just madness from opening kickoff till the very end. And Stuck, you kind of addressed this. What's Georgia's mindset? They'll play it safe and look toward next week. Nonsense. Since 2018, Georgia has as many SEC titles as I have. That's right, 0. They've won a national title since then. I think this is a big deal for them to win the SEC title. And also LSU's defense against A&M, they made the Aggies offense look like a juggernaut. So good news, Texas A&M fans, for next year when you're ranked number 5 in the preseason top 25. Finally, the SEC title game has gone over 63 3 of the past 4 years. It's top 73 the last 8 years. More madness from the opening kick until the final gun. Give me over 52.
Yeah, you get those SEC athletes on that fast track indoors, tends to lead to a lot of explosive plays. All right, let's move on to our 3rd marquee game of the day. Let's go to the ACC Championship. Yes, we actually have to talk about the ACC Championship. Clemson, North Carolina. Clemson's a 7.5 point favorite here. I think over just took some money recently up to about 64. This is a pass for me. I mean, these are two teams that I wish I could fade this weekend. I have some UNC money line and round robin because I don't know if Clemson doesn't show up. We'll see if North Carolina can solve this, the old Mahomes treatment that Drake May has gotten the past 2 weeks. Just drop everyone back in coverage, make them be patient. So we'll see, and we'll see if North Carolina's defense can get any stops. But if Clemson motivation, that's the big thing here. Do they care? Are they used to being in the college football playoff? I have nothing here. These are two teams I wish I could fade. Collin, what do you got?
Yeah, I'm going to go with Clemson. And you mentioned what's going to happen here. Drake May is going to see 8 guys drop into coverage, and Clemson can do that because they have a defensive line that can generate pressure with just 3 guys. And that's just the biggest difference in this game is that Clemson has a defense and North Carolina doesn't. Clemson is elite in terms of havoc. They're top 5 in the nation thanks to tackles for loss, sacks, pressure. And, Clemson is also top 25 in defensive success rate and in defensive finishing drives, which means North Carolina is going to have a lot less quality drives down the field and a lot tougher time scoring once they get towards the end zone. Now, when we go over to the Clemson side of the offensive side of the ball, this is, I think, finally the turn when Cade Klubnik is running this offense. It becomes more smooth. You can trust it more. Not many mistakes in the passing game. I'm sure DJ Uiagalelei is going to start the game. He's going to get a ton of snaps, but this is probably it for him before he transfers out to the West Coast. But I do trust this Clemson offense can get points up against a very poor North Carolina defense.
Yeah, we'll see if that Clemson defense can recover from making Spencer Rattler look like Joe Montana smoking Joe Namath cigars after the game. Joe Burrow cigars, I guess I should say, more recently. Brett, what do you say?
Is this no longer a DJU show? Or
the Cade Klubnik show.
Okay. All right. I didn't get the memo. I'll check my email. I'm actually going against Collin. Sorry, Collin, which may be good news for you. I like the Tar Heels here. Collin, you mentioned the quarterback issues at Clemson. Who knows what's going on and their mindset, confidence-wise. And this is strictly a motivational play for me. Clemson had a shot at getting the college football playoff until Spencer Rattler looked like Joe Burrow, Joe Montana, Joe Dirt, pick your choice. Now that's gone. North Carolina sputtered at the end. Yep, they sputtered at the end. They don't look good at all. But you know what? Their goals haven't changed. They had no shot to get to the college football playoff. And winning the ACC title, that's actually a big deal for North Carolina. Plus, I'm getting more than a touchdown. Give me Mac Brown and the Tar Heels +7 and the hook, I hope.
You get the hook. Let's move on to the fourth and final marquee game of the day. We're going to stay in prime time talking the Big Ten Championship in Indianapolis. Purdue takes on Michigan. Michigan 16.5 point favorite here. I think over under is still sitting at 52 overs, taking money this week. I'll kick things off. I'm going to go with Purdue catching the points here. Look, if you look historically, Aiden O'Connell usually shows up for these games. I think that they'll be able to attack Michigan with their short passing attack. With Maccabee, their running back, who's a walk-on, he's given them a little bit of balance. I don't think they'll get a lot on the ground, but they have more balance than they did earlier this year. And I think Purdue's offense is undervalued from a metrics standpoint because early in the season, they dealt with some conditions throughout, but O'Connell was dealing with an injury about 3 or 4 games, which really drove down his numbers. But I think that they'll have a good game plan here. I think that they can get some points. And then, I said Georgia, I think, is going to come out and really care about this. Michigan might come out a little flat. Look, they won this last year. They just beat Ohio State for the second straight year. They're already in the college football playoff. And I don't know if they just want to they want to show a lot. Like if you look back at a lot of their other games this year, it's like, all right, really conservative. Let's try to run it. And that would play right into Purdue's defense's hands because they've been great against the run all year. And I know McCarthy hit those explosive passes last week, but if you look back at the 3 or 4 games before then, he was really struggling throwing the ball, which is how you have to attack this Purdue team. I think Purdue stays within this number. Give me the Boilermakers. Collin, what do you got?
Yeah, I like the Boilermakers in the first half. That I think you're going to get whatever Jeff Brom has scripted up. By the way, Jeff Brom is absolutely excellent when he goes up in these kinds of games. You can reference back to that Ohio State upset from a few years ago. But Jeff Brom is just a big game coach. And when the scripted portion of this game comes out at the beginning, I trust Purdue a lot more than I trust Michigan. The Michigan has really struggled in the first half to build leads. They've been a complete second half team over the last 6 games, mostly the entire season. They have a net scoring margin of 116 points over the second half of their last 6 games, which means Purdue has the best shot in the beginning of the game when they have their scripted portion. And Michigan is still trying to figure out who they are offensively with Blake Corum out for the season. Are they passing all the time with JJ McCarthy? Is it play action? Are they going to try to run? I think there's a little bit of a, offensive identity. We're trying to find who they are without Blake Corum going on in the first half of this game. I wouldn't want to fade Michigan in the second half with the way that they played. So I'll take Purdue in the first half. I might even sprinkle a little plus 350 money line on the Boilermakers to be leading at halftime. So we'll see.
Love it. Brett?
Yeah, Stuck. I like Purdue also. I agree with what you were saying about the difference between Michigan and Georgia. For Michigan, they know they're in the playoff. This second consecutive year that they're coming off a win against Ohio State. For those of you scoring at home, that is now exactly 1,099 days since Ohio State last beat Michigan. Corum's out for the season. I think Michigan just does enough to win this game. It's the first meeting since 2017. Also, a couple of trends that go against Michigan. The Wolverines 3-10 against a spread when they're playing off of a straight up road dog win. Easy for me to say. And Purdue, more importantly, 7-1 against a spread as a conference dog of 8 or more points. They'll keep it close somehow, some way when you're getting more than 2 touchdowns. I'll take Purdue against Michigan, which sounds weird, but in actually a flat spot.
If I had it my way, the 8 or 12 team playoff, the Power 5 conference winners would get in. So Kansas State would be playing to get in. Purdue would be playing to get in. Make it Utah would have gotten in. Make everything so much more exciting. But whatever, I'm not in charge.
That's how it'll be. So you'll get your wish in 2 years.
Yeah, well, it's just this weekend would be so much better in that aspect. Instead of like, who cares who Purdue, Michigan, they don't care. And Ohio State is the one who benefited from this weekend. All right. Anyway, I digress. Let's before we get out of here, one final order of business, and that's one final best bet at the Horn. I'll lead things off. I'm going to go first half under in the Maction title. I think both teams are going to lean on their run game early. Ohio's defense has improved significantly with some scheme and personnel changes about midway through the year. And I think Toledo is going to lean on their ground game. Ohio's going to lean on their ground game. Look, there's questions about both quarterbacks. I don't need, Finn isn't fully healthy. I don't need the backups coming in and chucking. This could get wild in the second half. Might look for a live under, depending on how it plays out early, how the quarterbacks look. But I like the first half under. I think this starts slow as these teams feel each other out, and they're going to rely on their run games, played a little conservative early on. Collin, what you got? One final best bet.
Yeah, give me Boise State -3 in the Mountain West Championship. Listen, the interim offensive coordinator, Dirk Cotter, has meant the world to this Boise State offense. They turned to Taylon Green at quarterback. He is a dual threat that's just been explosive on the ground, explosive through the air. Boise State is operating at a much higher level on offense, and they have a better defense in this game. 2 offenses that love to run. Boise State's the best at defending the run. So give me the Broncos -3 to win the Mountain West.
Yeah, that Fresno run D, defensive line and linebackers are really poor at defending the run. And yeah, Boise's been a different team since Cutter took over. We'll see how much money he potentially asks for either at Boise or somewhere else if he wants to remain coaching. Brett, what do you got?
Keeping with my America thread from the start of the show, I'm going with the American Conference title game. I'm going with Tulane here. UCF won the first meeting. Very impressive. However, they've got quarterback injury issues. Who knows, how healthy these guys are. Once that happened against USF, they almost lost. They probably should have lost. Tulane, incredibly impressive win at Cincinnati to get the home field and get this berth. Spears and Pratt are really peaking at the right time. And I think the biggest factor, maybe this has been underplayed, it was known by everyone throughout college football. Willie Fritz was gone to Georgia Tech. Gone, done deal. However, at the last minute, change of heart, he's staying at Tulane. I think that's big for these guys, that he's sticking around. He's going to be there. I think Tulane wins and goes to the Cotton Bowl, where they will play USC. I breaking news. I'm being told Stuckey has just made a play on the Green Wave versus the Trojans in the Cotton Bowl. Go away.
Oh man, what's Spears going to run for 600 yards in that game? Just hand him the ball 40 times. Yeah, it's a perfect way to end the show with the covering Kings Tulane. And yeah, if Plumlee isn't fully healthy, who ran for almost 200 yards against them in the first meeting, that's a problem for UCF. Because they'll have to try to throw in that excellent secondary. All right, good stuff as always. Thanks to all of you for tuning in. Thanks as always to Collin and Brett for joining me. Thanks to our audio and video teams on the back end who don't get enough credit. Do want to remind everyone to make sure, again, that you download the award-winning Action Network app. You can find all of our picks there. And one final reminder on the offer from BetMGM, bonus code ACTION. When you sign up, get a risk-free wager up to $1,000. Again, that's the bonus code ACTION. Terms and conditions do apply. Go Team USA. Good luck on all of your wagers today. And we will see you for bowl season. Cheers.